Superman is my most anticipated movie of 2025, hands down. Because on just a fundamental character level, I love Superman. I love Superman as much as I love Spider-Man. I might not have as much knowledge of the general world of Superman as I do Spider-Man, but just that character fundamentally is equally awesome. Whether he's the cheery and unwaveringly optimistic Christopher Reeve version, or Zack Snyder's tortured idealist in an imperfect world, I know to some wrong people, this is gonna sound crazy, but to me, Superman is one of the most relatable superheroes. No, I don't have superpowers. I don't have ice breath and heat ray vision and the power of flight. However, I do believe in an innate underlying goodness to humanity, even if we, more often than not, look unbelievably shitty. Superman is the kind stranger that will help out his fellow man, in a world where the headlines are full of cruelty. Which is why, whether it comes from Richard Donner, or a multiverse variant of Bryan Singer that isn't a nonce, God King Supreme Overlord Zack Snyder, or James the Goat Gunn, I'm just looking forward to a Superman movie. I will always look forward to a Superman movie. Alright, so CinemaCon has been happening. And yada yada, Disney, blah 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 blah. Okay, right. Getting down to business. Superman. There was a Superman panel. There was Superman footage. So I'm first going to talk a little bit about the Superman panel, about the interviews. They had James Gunn, David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, who I think I might be in love with, and of course, Nicholas Hoult.
I hate Fandango!
And just from top to bottom, these guys get it. They understand the assignment. James Gunn, David Corenswet, and Rachel Brosnahan all kind of waxed lyrically about who Superman is and kind of their goal for Superman in this movie. What they want kind of the takeaway from this movie to be. What they want kids to take away from this movie. And that being that, no matter how old-fashioned it sounds, kindness is cool.
Not naive, because naive does imply that you're missing something, and everybody misses something, but Superman knows that he misses something. He wants to miss the bad stuff. He wants to see the good stuff.
They discuss how they want kind of kids to come away from this movie thinking kindness is cool. I love that. First thing I want in a superhero movie, let alone a Superman movie, is sincerity. Now, I was a little initially concerned when James Gunn was announced as the director of Superman back in the past, way back in late 2022. Where the fuck has the time gone? Because James Gunn has an affinity for irreverent humor, but I think what I wasn't seeing at the time was that ultimately James Gunn makes very sincere stories as well. Look at Guardians. And another fantastic example of this is as recent as Creature Commandos, which is kind of the first DCU project, although kind of tentatively. But above all else, a Superman movie requires a degree of sincerity, whether that is in the form of a darker, bleaker, more grim world for Superman, or a more comedic one. Sincerity must be at the absolute forefront of a Superman story, and it looks like we have that here. In fact, James Gunn really kind of doubled down on this as well, saying that one of his big conditions for David Corenswet to play Superman was that he had to be sincere in this role, which means he cannot be the kind of actor that comes on set and berates the other cast and crew members. He himself must be a kind and sincere person.
This was your mantra on set, that everybody had to be kind, and this was,
That's
you know,
right. That's
we're gonna
right.
bring.
And that speaks to me in this day and age, because the belief in an actor who doesn't have a multitude of dire skeletons in their closet that no ordinary person should have is about as much a pie-in-the-sky pipe dream as seemingly Superman could be. But I want to believe, and they're speaking to me with this. This might be one of those rare occasions where I don't have to separate any kind of art from any kind of artist. I really hope so. Full disclosure, I'm someone who was not bothered by the old James Gunn tweets from the past. I should probably stress some of them were, yeah, distasteful, but point still stands, who cares? I'm British, you'll hear far worse than that in Tesco. But James Gunn does talk about how he wanted to cast someone who shares the values of Clark Kent, and that ultimately that fell down to David Corenswet. That and the fact that he's a great actor who looks like he was genetically engineered to play Superman, in the same way that Henry Cavill looked like he was genetically engineered to play Superman. And that's important to me. I like it when the actor resembles the character, not just in terms of appearance, but also in terms of who they are. There was also a lot of discussion of Superman and Lois Lane's dynamic in this film, which looks to be a very central component to this movie. The Superman and Lois Lane dynamic has always been really interesting, going from, say, the Richard Donner era Superman to the Zack Snyder era Superman. With Margot Kidder as Lois Lane, she was very much a realist, kind of emblematic of that real-world cynicism, but she's also someone who wants to believe in better, and finds Superman's almost kind of naivety to be a little mysterious and very endearing. These two speak different languages in terms terms of their overall belief system, while still holding similar beliefs at heart. Zack Snyder kind of moved away from this, given that the world of Snyder's Superman is a very cynical place. He more had Superman and Amy Adams' Lois Lane bond over the fact that they're both idealistic.
Thank you.
For what?
For believing in me.
So, with David Corenswet's Superman and Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane, we've got a bit of a different dynamic once again. They're already in a relationship. The question is whether it will endure, whether it will last, as they are kind of going back a little bit more down the mismatch route. Superman always looking for his next chance to do the right thing and make the world better, while Lois Lane thinks a little bit more about the potential consequences of that. She's kind of a grounding force for Superman. Hearing that and saying that out loud, it sounds to me like they will endure. It sounds to me like they could be good for each other. But we are back to the idealist and the realist, and I'm guessing that means that the world of James Gunn's Superman is going to be less of a commentary of the real world and maybe a little bit more of an escape from it. Rather than the world being this hideous, broken, and unjust place, Lex Luthor is just the villain instead. And I'm liking what I'm hearing about Lex as well. In this version, in terms of Lex's motivations, he hates Superman because he hates Superman. He doesn't really need a reason to hate Superman, he just hates him. What we've got here is a bit more of a back-to-basics villain, someone who is just evil because they are evil. And I'm very much looking forward to that. Look, I can appreciate all of the deconstructions of the villain archetype. I can appreciate all the Joker 2019s in the world, where there's rhyme, there's reason, there's humanity to it. But at the same time, I also just appreciate a real shit-eater. Lex Luthor in this universe is just an incredibly hateful man, and I gotta say, after logging into Twitter this morning, I find that very believable. There's also a lot of discussion of Krypto, the superdog. And yeah, rather than this being a dog that Superman happens to have, we are fully going with the cosmic superpowered space dog approach, and you could tell that from the first trailer anyway. However, as James Gunn says, he's the worst dog in the world. In that, like a lot of dogs, he's just fucking stupid. He means well like a dog does. He's full of love and excitement and pep. He's a dog. But play is the thing that is at the forefront of his entire fucking worldview. He just wants to play at all times. Now, if you've ever owned a Staffy, yes, I'm referencing you now, you'll know how much accidental damage these adorable meatheads can leave behind. So imagine a space dog with the power of 1,000 Staffies, getting the zoomies. Imagine what that can do. I'm looking forward to this. And we get a little glimpse of that in the CinemaCon footage as well, which was also just meant to be kind of a CinemaCon thing as far as I understand, but then it leaked online and then James Gunn posted it. While that is kind of the order things went in, I don't know if that was always the intention to upload this later on, but either way we got to see the footage and I'm really happy about that. It's a 4-minute sneak peek. Admittedly, only 3 of those minutes are anything really new, while the remaining 1 minute has sprinklings of extended stuff here and there, but is ultimately the trailer that we've seen before. But it's great because following the panel with Fandango, we get to see how this comes together in an actual little scene. We get to see what the overall tone of this is. Stop! Right there! I gotta display a list of names of people who are in my personal patron group chat, while reading aloud the names of the $5 and above tier members. Josh Dennett, KB, Dear Denny, Twilord, and Mr. SP, Biotin. Just another evil robot clone seeking revenge. Cale Bennett, when are we gonna see the Pup Rangers? Alright, fine, I'll put the CGI dog in a Power Rangers costume. Sad Goku, with great power, Xander Wolf. And now on to the $5 ones. Basic content, Christopher, Cho Henshin, Gideon Wells, Goat Cannon, Goober, Grant Allen, Hey It's Classy, Josh Strider, Cal X, Coco210, Let's See, Marv Animation, Manalza, Reese Burns, RT0, Silver, SSS06, Vera Wild, Zach Brakowski, and Surus the Skeptic. Thank you, folks. Back to the video! Now, allegedly, this is the opening scene of the movie. Superman, injured, crashes down in the Arctic and calls upon Krypto to take him home. Now, I can't help but wonder what it is that has Superman so beaten down here. What did he fight? What was he up against? We should fear that, right? It's probably just an ambiguous thing, just something to set up the movie. Superman is back from one of his adventures. We understand that this guy goes out and fights all kinds of cosmic beings, and this is how Superman comes home. It's like me back in the day, coming home from a night out and crashing in the dog's bed. Although Toby was just a bit bit more gentle than Krypto appears to be. Krypto is trying so hard to play with Superman. You didn't see this in the original trailer. In the original trailer, he comes and then he takes Superman home. Here he's playing with him, he's trying to grab him, he's nipping at him, he's pulling out his leg, he's tugging at the costume, because he's just so happy to see Superman. Superman's home, let's play, he's thinking. And I gotta say, the humor here is done just right. It doesn't feel overly lampshaded. Like, stop everything dead, we got a joke coming through. It's not like that. It's more, Superman has called his trusty dog to help out, and the dog's doing what a dog does. And David Corenswet's pained grunts are very funny. They're not overly SNL sounding. They still sound genuine, and I think that's what makes it as funny as it is. I don't think we've ever seen Superman in this position before, where he's just getting beaten up by a little creature that he knows is completely innocent. A creature that he loves, and it's a creature that is just beating him up out of pure joy to see him. But again, he is a good boy, so he does eventually take Superman home. Home to the Fortress of Solitude, taking on a much more classical kind of Fortress of Solitude look with the giant crystal shards raising from the ground, and it does look very impressive. And I noticed the music that plays here as the Fortress of Solitude rises from the ground is the same music that plays in the DC Studios logo, which played at the start of Creature Commandos. So I guess what we were hearing in that logo was the Fortress of Solitude leitmotif, presumably by John Murphy, unless maybe that's a placeholder because the music editing's a little strange here in how it kind of fades from one track to the next. As the fortress rises, you see the door of the Fortress of Solitude, which is that Superman crest, and it kind of glows red as it confirms Superman and Krypto's identities and lets them in. It's very futuristic, yet also very alien at the same time. I guess the word for it is space-agey, and they really go full speed ahead with that as well, as Superman is carted off to medical assistance by a bunch of automatons. The same automatons from All-Star Superman. And that's definitely the vibe I'm sensing from all of this. It is aggressively All-Star Superman coded, even down to the little numbers on their chests. And as they help Superman, Superman thanks them. Even though they are robots who will have no comprehension of gratitude, they're not going to appreciate Superman's politeness, he thanks them anyway, because he's Superman, that's what he does. He's got courtesy for all. And they point this out, and you get a fun kind of roll of the eyes as Superman hears these robots drone on about how they don't really care that he's thankful, as though he's heard it before. And in true James Gunn fashion, even these automatons are characterized. We've got 12, the new automaton, and she's all excited about the fact that Superman just looked at her. There's a definite sense of charm to this. I also love the way these robots look as well. They are very faithful to the All-Star Superman versions with the capes and the numbered crests, but there are little differences as well in their heads. They're more like visors. They're a bit less humanoid in the facial department. Less skull-like than the comic designs. And I don't know if these are practical puppets or if these are all CGI, but they look fantastic, even down to their little robotic movements and the reflections on their metallic outfits. It's just exciting to see this new approach to the Fortress of Solitude. For a film, anyway. I absolutely adore All-Star Superman, and I'm just really pleased to see all this stuff going onto the big screen, adapted thoughtfully into live action. Losing the word there, thoughtfully. Take notes, Disney. And they list off all of his ailments before prescribing him a little dose of sunshine. And I know that some folks have been saying, if the sun is what gives Superman his powers, why is he writhing in pain as he's cured here? Well, they give him a quick burst of 292 times Saharan prime sunshine. That is the Sahara Desert's prime sunshine multiplied by 292. Yo, why would the sun hurt Superman if he's fueled by it? I don't know, why would shoving 10,000 burgers down my throat kill me? If food is the fuel of humanity. Think, people, think! And they use this very sort of metallic sort of device, like a lens, and it always kind of looks a little steampunky in a way. Again, very All-Star Superman, where the Fortress of Solitude is full of different bits and pieces, not all of it going for that kind of glassy, crystalline look of the rest of the fortress. I wonder what else we're going to see in this version of the Fortress of Solitude. If anything, it's making me excited to explore this fortress. Are we going to see the shrunken city of Kandor? Will we see the big rocket? Again, it's very, very All-Star Superman, and that makes me so happy. As they blast him with the amplified sunshine, and he's regenerated back to health, you do hear a bit of that Superman leitmotif as well, which is the John Williams one that John Murphy is reprising for this movie. The music in this is certainly interesting. It seems to be going more the conventional orchestral approach, which what matters ultimately is if this fits the movie. I guess this is probably a hot take given that John Williams' theme is so iconic and beloved, but when I think of my favorite Superman music, some of my favorite superhero music full stop, it would be what Hans Zimmer accomplished for Man of Steel, which I think kind of more greatly considers this alien on our world. You've got a combination of synths and worldly instruments. Ugh, the Man of Steel soundtrack is so spectacular. If the whole soundtrack is like what we're hearing here, for me, it's not going to top the Man of Steel score. But as long as it fits the movie, that's what matters the most, as long as it complements what is on screen, which so far it does. And again, I think the choice to reprise the John Williams theme kind of communicates to me that this isn't James Gunn's take on Superman, and this isn't John Murphy's Superman theme, this is just Superman. We are not rejecting what has been established and is now synonymous with the character, we are embracing that. And as much as I adore the Man of Steel soundtrack, I can also appreciate going this route. It's very respectful. Now, I'm going to say this, if this is the opening scene of the movie, this is an excellent opening as well, because it demonstrates to us that Superman is not invincible. Like, he can be hurt, he can be injured, he can suffer the things that us humans suffer. They establish that he's relatable, he's got a dog, he loves his dog. They establish that he's quite idealistic and unwaveringly polite, and that politeness extends even to those who can't comprehend it. And we show that the sun is the source of Superman's power. This one clip alone lays down so much groundwork for Superman. Like, if you're a casual audience member who knows nothing about Superman, i.e. if you don't exist, because everyone knows something about Superman, I think this scene does an excellent job at laying out who this character is and what he's about. This was an absolute home run of a way to reveal one of the first scenes in the movie. And as for the look of the film as well, I don't know if I personally am going to gravitate toward the look of the movie as much as I did the look of Zack Snyder's DC trilogy, because those are some beautiful fucking movies. Like, they are a feast for the senses. However, from a production design standpoint, everything here is very unabashedly, unashamedly comic booky. Like, in terms of live action superhero movies, this is about as comic booky as it's going to get. It really does look like a live action version of All-Star Superman. We obviously knew that Superman was getting a very comic book accurate Superman costume, and we can see that that extends across the entirety of the production design in this film. James Gunn is a very comic booky guy, and I can see through this that he and all the production designers clearly hold the comics with very high reverence. It's comic booky in a way that is very different to Zack Snyder's, where, like with Zack Snyder's film, every shot looked like it could have been a carefully, meticulously composed and designed comic book panel. But the design sensibilities were a lot more kind of almost H.R. Geiger. Like, they were comic booky in terms of shot composition. And I mean, the superhero costumes as well were incredibly comic book looking in Zack Snyder's movies. But with this, just the entire production design across the board looks like a real-life comic book scenario playing out. So it's a very different approach, but one that holds the same overall value. And I don't doubt that this movie is going to be more accessible and will therefore resonate much more with the general audience as well. The whole tone of this is full of charm and likability. And first and foremost, sincerity. Based on this clip alone, I am 100% sold on this Superman movie. I am absolutely head over heels in love with what I'm seeing here. Even the choice to have the Alex Ross Superman logo on the chest makes so much sense when you look at the overall production design. The Fortress of Solitude is almost kind of like retro-futuristic. Very space-agey. That's a word I've been saying a lot here. Very space-agey. And that Alex Ross crest, very space-agey as well. Very retro-futuristic. This movie's gonna kick ass. Now, once that ends, you do get a slightly extended version of the trailer that we saw last December. It's really just things like slightly extended shots. You've got that one part where Lex Luthor says he's back. And you've got a different arrangement of the Superman theme to the one that we heard in the first teaser trailer. This one here kind of doing away with the electric guitar, because I mean that was the music that played over the scene with Krypto in the original trailer anyway, and going full orchestral, which I'm hoping isn't indicative. I would love to hear more electric guitar in Superman. I'd love to hear more electric guitar in movies, just full stop. I think it's a really cool instrument. Can we get saxophone? Saxophone would be really cool. Apparently David Corenswet really likes jazz, I'm just saying. It's too late for any of that now. And look, again, I'm just gonna appreciate what the artistic intent is here. But James Gunn, okay, you're not watching this, but if you were, all right, look, you're getting fan requests left, right, and center. Can we see this villain? Can we see that character? I'm just gonna say, can we hear saxophone in the score? That would be really fucking cool. I can't wait for this. I genuinely cannot wait. I feel like I need to get my butt in a cinema seat right now. The video is over. Leave.